Hey guys, welcome back to the Rebel Homestead. My name is Sarah. I am a homesteader out here in Middle Tennessee, and I want to take you guys on an update of our farm. So let's get started. So right behind me you can kind of see our goats. We just purchased 3 meat goats. They're a Boer breed, or Boer? I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but the intent and purpose for these animals is to have sustainable meat. We're only on 15 acres, so we have to be wise and kind of choosy about the kind of animals that we bring to our property. And Boer goats are pretty low impact. They're easy maintenance animals as far as goats go. Some animals like dairy goats, if they're going to need to be milked every day when they're in lactation. Boer goats, you don't need to worry about that kind of thing. They grow quickly and efficiently on forage, and they're not as jumpy or flighty as some other breeds of goats, so they're a really good option for somebody who maybe doesn't have like the best fencing system. And right now, we're on our property here without the majority of it fenced. Some of it is, but not all of it. We're training them to electric fence right now, so we've got a Premier One net that they're in, and they're getting trained to that currently. We've got them staked and tethered like a dog on a lead, kind of. They've got collars on, but that's what prevents them from going through the fence when they get hit and they realize, like, oh shoot, that hurts. So we will they'll test the fences with the collars on. That stops them from getting too far away from us, and then they'll eventually learn just not to touch it, not to mess with it, not to test the fence, and they'll stay inside the fences. And so far, we've had them for about 2 weeks now. Things are going pretty well. 2 of them are pretty much totally trained to it. This one big guy right behind me is still challenging it from time to time, so we've still got him tethered, but I think that will hopefully change soon. You might be thinking, like, okay, that's weird, like goat meat, like nobody eats goat meat, which is true here in the US. Like, a lot of people don't eat goat meat, but worldwide, goat meat is the #1 consumed meat type. Other things like beef and chicken and pork, at least for chicken and pork, you need grain inputs, and so that makes it really difficult in some more impoverished countries to feed those animals. Beef requires a lot of land and a lot of green grass. If you live in a place that doesn't have that, and I would say probably the majority of the world probably doesn't have that, places like Africa and Australia, there aren't huge tracts of land in Europe anymore to support massive cattle herds. So it's a type of meat that's rising in popularity right now, and one that we definitely are interested in at least attempting on our farm. So the next animal that we are incorporating onto the farm here are silver fox rabbits. We gave some thought into the animals that we were bringing to the farm. We knew we wanted a cow, so that was the very first animal we secured because cows give milk daily. They're completely grass-fed if that's the way you choose to raise them. We went with goats because same thing. They're primarily grass-fed. We can use the goats for meat as well as for brush clearing, so they're like kind of a utility animal on the farm. And then we were thinking about other animals that we might want to see on the farm. A lot of people do meat chickens, and that's great. I think meat chickens are amazing. I would probably do meat chickens, except for the fact that I really hate brooding chicks. Like, it's one of my least favorite things of any homesteading activity. I don't like brooding chicks. I don't like brooding egg layers or any kind of meat chicken for that matter. So we opted instead to bring onto the farm 3 silver fox rabbits. We have a buck. This is our buck. I think his name is Carlos. I don't know. That's what the kids kind of came up with yesterday. But this is our buck. We have 2 does, and I'll pop them out to show you those in a second. Right now they're pretty young. They're only about 9 weeks old, so they're not breeding age yet, but by about the 15-16 week mark they will be. When that happens, we will be deciding at that point, do we want to breed, do we not want to breed? it's nice with rabbits, as you know, they're kept in separate cages. Some people have colony style, which is great. I think colonies are awesome. We just don't have the means to do it here on this property. So we have them in separate cages, and we can choose to put the doe in with the buck when we want to have kids. So they produce litters of about 6 to 8 depending, and they'll either grow and be sold as pets. That's another nice thing, is you can sell rabbit kits as pets. Nobody would want a meat chicken as a pet, or some people I've heard do that, but that's kind of, you know, off the wall. But they're very docile rabbits. You can see this guy, he's just chill in my arms. He's so relaxed. He's not tense at all. He's curious, he's friendly. He loves pets. They're really wonderful animals on a homestead. And again, they're primarily grass-fed, so we don't have to do a lot of inputs for these animals. They're young, so we do have them on a little bit of some specialized pellet feed, but it's not something that we like absolutely have to have for them throughout their lifetime. So it's another thing that's low input, really sustainable, and can keep giving back to us for many years to come. They're also incredibly cute. Huh, Carlos? You're so cute, little bud. I'll show you the doe. So this is one of our does. We have 2 does. This one is the blue color, so they come in a couple different colors. Silver foxes are black, chocolate, blue, and I think they're talking about a spotted variety, but I'm not quite sure on the spotted. I'm not sure if they've been recognized as part of the breed standard yet, but they have a couple different colors. They're all solid. The black ones get this really pretty silver speckling in their coat. It's really like beautiful and nice to look at, and just kind of nice to have animals on the farm that aren't just totally utilitarian. They're actually also aesthetically pleasing. That's something that matters to me, probably more than it should, but it's just the way I like to do things, and the way we like to do things is to have some animals that we enjoy watching from an aesthetic standpoint, not just purely like, is it functional? So this is a low cost setup, big impact. A female rabbit can produce something upwards of 25 to 30 kits in a year. So you're looking at, you know, if those are each, 6 pounds, 6 pounds at butcher weight. I don't know, somebody do the math. It's a lot of meat that you could potentially be putting in your freezer. And that's really valuable for us on this homestead as we look to become more sustainable. So here she is. Very sweet, very friendly buns. So the last time I showed you the barns, there was a lot of trash left in here from the previous owners. We got that all cleaned out, gutted the entire barn, and we used it for a little bit as a holding space for Annie when we got our cow. She's out on the pasture now, and so what we've done in the meantime in one of these stalls is turned it into a milking stanchion area. This will be like our dairy parlor, so to speak, while we hopefully are waiting on like an actual dairy parlor setup in the future. I don't know when that's going to happen. That will be a very labor intensive and financially intensive endeavor. But for now, this is an excellent setup. Matt's building this for us. We haven't hired any of this work out. So yeah, this is our stanchion. It's actually lifted up off the ground. I don't know if you can see that very well. There's a ramp in the back. She'll come up the ramp. There'll be a head catch right here, and she'll be about 18 inches off the ground, so I don't have to be squatting under her, kind of breaking my back while we're milking. And then she'll come down the front ramp and out back into the pasture. So that's kind of like a really fantastic setup, way more than I thought I would have when we got a cow. I thought that Matt would give me something very basic, but he's gone above and beyond per the usual. The other stall that we have is where we keep the rabbits. So took all the stuff out of here. This is mostly Matt's tools while he's working on the stanchion and the fences. We saw a really cool picture of some rabbit hutches where they weren't really hutches. Somebody had just kind of hung them on the side of a barn wall, and I thought, okay, we kind of have a situation like that, we can do that. So a couple days ago, maybe it was like a week ago, I hung these cages up. I put these T-posts here with the hooks on them. They've got like the hooks on the inside to stabilize the cage, and did that with every single one of them. And it was a really low cost way to like just incorporate this animal into our farm. A lot of hutches cost, I don't know, $200-300, a lot of money, more than that now probably, with like materials and stuff like that. This was almost free because we had the T-post already. Oh, where's my piece of paper? Lost my notes. Can't do this without my notes. So that's part of what we like to do on this farm, is find really innovative ways to do things effectively, and if we can marry it with a little bit frugally. We don't want to be frugal and like ineffective, because that's not helping anybody, that's just creating more work. But if we can be frugal and effective at the same time, that's like the sweet spot. So you may have already seen on Instagram, we have introduced Annie to our farm. She is a 4-year-old Jersey cow. She is heavy pregnant and actually due any day now. Like I said before, we wanted dairy for a long time. Dairy goats were maybe an option we thought about when we were still in the city, but we were not really too keen on the idea of having goats in our backyard. We had very, very close neighbors, and if they ever complained, it was 100% going to be an issue. So we decided to forego any kind of dairy animal until we moved here. And we got Annie. Her due date is April 20th, and it is April 16th, so we are very close. She's making changes every day. Her bag looks different every day. Her mood is different every day. But she's doing amazing. She's doing fantastic. Let's see. We also, so when we were in Colorado, we weren't sure how getting a dairy animal was going to pan out for us. That was kind of like an unknown in the whole scheme of things. So what I did to find our cow is I went on Facebook, Milk Cow Market. I don't know if there's a pretty popular group out there where people post milk cows that they're up for discussion. I just went on there and I posted a real brief, like, in search of Jersey cow, A2. That was kind of what I put out there. What I got back was a random message to my Instagram. I thought, this is really weird. An Instagram message, somebody saying like, hey, we have a Jersey cow, you might be interested in her, would you like to schedule a time to talk? So we did. I spoke with the owner of Crossing Creek's farm here in Tennessee, and she told me all about Annie. And we hit it off. We had a lot in common. We had a lot to say to each other, and we really, really both felt like the Lord was leading us to this decision, them of letting Annie go because she was like a part of their family. And I think it's safe to say she still is like a part of their family. And for us as well to welcome Annie into our family, it was just, everything felt perfectly together. So Annie is kind of our, I don't want to call her a miracle cow because it wasn't really that miraculous to find a cow through a Facebook group, but it was very random. I got zero, I had zero interest on that in search of post that I had. The owner of Crossing Creek's farm, Elizabeth, she saw that post and found me on Instagram, and we just kind of went from there. So she was the only one who responded to that post, and it just so happened that they're, 45 minutes up the road from where we would be moving to, and here in McMinnville. So worked out great. Annie's here now. We love her to death. I honestly love her to death. The first few days of having her, were very very emotional for me, which is not hard for me to get emotional. It just happens all the time. But I grew up around large animals. You know, I worked with horses, and I had that connection with big animals that work hard for you. And so when we brought Annie to the farm, it was almost like a rebirth kind of thing for me. Like, my adult life, I've ridden a horse maybe 3 or 4 times. It's not been very frequent. Haven't worked with large animals at all as an adult, and so bringing her here and having her on our farm was like really, really fulfilling. Just seeing her face every day and watching her build that bond with me has been amazing. Not every animal you meet you're gonna build a bond with, you know, but Annie was kind of exactly what I think this farm needed. She's helping us to regenerate the earth by rotationally grazing, which she's very effective at, and she knows exactly what to do. Elizabeth and her Crossing Creeks farm crew did an amazing job on this animal, and she knows exactly what she's supposed to do when she's supposed to do it. We're extremely fortunate that our very first cow is a cow that is like 100% already up to speed with this. So we're learning, she's teaching us, she's already old hat at it, so we're very, very fortunate to have her. Aren't we, Annie? So this is Annie. She's extremely sweet. Just a love, aren't you? Good girl, Annie, good girl. Right under the chin, this is her spot. Oh yeah, oh yeah, right under the chin. Wonderful animal, just a wonderful animal. Really, really love having her. There's something pretty magical about having large animals. I've never had a dairy cow before, so really brings something special into life. Hi, Annie. And now we get to play the waiting game on when this one is going to have a calf. She's very wide right now. So Matt finished fencing the upper part of our farm a couple weeks ago, a little bit after we got Annie. She was in a temporary pen, and then he did this. We have a situation a little bit with our property. When we bought the land, we had heard that there was a man who was using the land. He was sharecropping it from the current owners, and he had planted it with corn and soy and wheat throughout the years, and he'd been doing this for years. And so we were like, okay, understandable. We got here and we met him, and he had already put some wheat down in this lower pasture and the upper pasture, and he asked us, you know, is that something you guys would like to continue, the sharecropping? And we at first were thinking like, well, we need space to graze our cow, so not sure how well it'll work out. But the more we thought about it, the more we were like, okay, well, let's give it some consideration, because, you know, he's put money onto this property. We want to be neighborly. We want to do the right thing. So we talked to him again and said, you know what, as long as everything lines up, we don't see a problem with it for a short time, probably, you know, only through the summer. And he was like, okay, yeah. So we started asking questions a little bit and found out that unfortunately he is using glyphosate, which, if you know anything about glyphosate, it is heavily linked to cancer. It's a product that is owned and controlled 100% by the Monsanto Corporation, and it's controversial. You know, it's very controversial. We come from a pretty organic standpoint. We don't buy into conventional chemical farming, and we wanted to keep it that way. So when he told us that, we were, you know, pretty disappointed, because we wanted to be able to, you know, do right by him and you know, build that relationship with somebody in the community. That little goat is really upset. I think she's hungry. Anyways, so we decided that it would probably be best to just let him finish out his hay crop, since all of this greenery you see behind me is his wheat seed. He said that that will probably be done around like April or May, and then once that's done, he'll be done with the land, which is too bad. It would have been nice if it had worked out a little bit and we could have come up with something, but it's just wasn't in the cards. So, because this land was sprayed with herbicides, we have to be conscientious about how we approach growing anything here. We don't know if our garden is going to grow. The broadleaf things like tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, these things don't do well on soils that were previously treated with glyphosate. Now, we do get a lot of rain, and that's one saving grace here, is that glyphosate breaks down pretty easily when it's exposed to water. So hopefully enough has been rained on and washed away that it won't really be an issue for us, but it is something that we're having to consider. But the flip side of that is that we get to showcase how powerful regenerative agriculture can be. Conventional farming requires inputs like fertilizer, like herbicides, pesticides, and special seed to ensure that when you do spray with those herbicides and pesticides, it doesn't kill them as well. They have to be genetically modified so that they're resistant to whatever it is you're putting on the ground. Conventional farming has its strengths, and I don't knock anybody doing it, but for a regenerative farmer, I think that there is something to be said, especially in times like these when fertilizer prices are just through the roof. There's scarcity, talk of scarcity, and, you know, entities that are out there that are pretty much telling you, you know, this is not the way. Well, I think it is the way. I think there's a lot to be said for doing something in a simple and traditional way. Humankind has been doing regenerative agriculture since pretty much the dawn of time, the dawn of agriculture at least. And so to say it can't be done is, you know, really limiting, I think, and discounts a lot of the things that regenerative agriculture can truly do. Which is, you know, like we have Annie, she's rotating. Every single one of these dark spots you see behind me, literally, oops, over here. Every single one, and I can go show you, is a place where she has left her manure. And the grass there grows much more vigorously than it does on the rest of the pasture. You can see underneath my feet here, the ground is pretty sparse. Conventional farming requires tilling every year, requires synthetic fertilizer to be dropped on the ground. And unfortunately, when you put synthetic fertilizer on the ground, it is either washed away or uptook into a plant so quickly that there's none left year after year after year. But when you put down a complex chemical composition that's in manure, it stays. The bacteria in the soil make something of that, and that ends up feeding the soil for years to come. So regenerative agriculture, in my opinion, is the way to go. I've seen it happening here. I mean, just right behind me. Look at all these green patches. That's what Annie's doing. A little bit more difficult to show you is what the chickens are doing. So when I first showed you our chickens a couple of months ago now, sorry about that, it's been a while. When I first showed you that, they were just in that little makeshift pen up there in the barn. We have now got them in Premier 1 chicken netting. We built one of the Justin Rhodes 2.0 chickshaws. So this is mobile. This can go all over the pasture, and we take it all over. We had 6 chickens a couple weeks ago, and we now have 35 chickens. You can see some of them are pretty young. They're kind of like little guys out there. But we're grateful to have them, and I'm going to tell you an interesting story. Okay, so the story goes, back in December, before we were even moved out here, I was, you know, in my mom and dad's house, and I was going through one of the major online hatcheries catalogs. And I was thinking, okay, let's plan out our birds for this year. I want a bunch of layers. I want a lot of pretty birds. So I put together an order. Come March, I found out that there is a local hatchery here in Tennessee, and they have many of the same breeds that I was going to get out from the hatchery that was going to ship them to me. I toyed with the idea of canceling our other order, our online order, and just getting our chickens from the local place, and talked to Matt about it, kind of prayed about it a little bit, and decided, you know what, let's do this. Let's get them from the local place. We'll cancel our other order. I hate to cancel business from a good company because they are a good company, but it just felt like the right thing to do. So I went ahead and canceled our order and placed an order with this local hatchery. We had a little bit of a mix-up, so they ended up giving us 5 more birds than they meant to give us. They had a snafu there, so we actually got 5 more birds that we didn't even pay for, and they said just keep them. So we're like, okay. So we went from having 6 chickens that we brought out here to having 35 chicks. Did I mention I hate brooding chicks? We had 35 of them. And so we just were like, okay, this is the way this story is going to play out. And then come to find out, like a week and a half ago, I just found out that this hatchery, whom I love and I've done business with before, they're fantastic. They were hit with an avian influenza, and it's the same one that's been sweeping through the Midwest and parts of the eastern Midwest, all the way down in here to the south. I think yesterday was the first confirmed case in Tennessee. Now it's, from what I understand, it's a virus that's been prevalent in previous years, so mostly negatively affects waterfowl and wild birds of prey. It's still something that we're having to consider, but the hatchery, they did, have to cancel a ton of orders. And had I kept my order with them, we wouldn't have had any birds this year, at least not in the time frame that I thought we were going to get them. So I'm very grateful that we made that switch. I feel like God was looking out for us, and it just, changed. It could have been a really devastating thing to find out that we weren't going to get any laying hens from them this year, and we were going to have to source them from elsewhere. I don't think there's as many chick shortages now as there were like in 2020, so I don't think that would have been difficult. It just would have been, kind of a really big inconvenience. And anything that's an inconvenience like that on a farm, I'm learning, is more than just an inconvenience. It's like a mental setback. You kind of get into this routine and this mindset of, everything's in a balance here until it's not. And when it's not, it's like, it's a big struggle. You start to feel defeated. You start to think, oh, I should have done this differently, or whatever that may be. But those little minor inconveniences on a farm can mean more than just minor inconvenience mentally. It can be a little bit more taxing. So we're grateful that we have these birds. I am anxious to see what they do to this pasture, because right now they're dropping nitrogen-rich manure on the ground, and I'm not seeing much of a difference yet, but I think in the weeks to come, and the more we rotate them, the more we follow them behind the cows, there's going to be a big difference. The reason why I put them behind the cows is that they help reduce pest pressure, and they also help to mitigate parasites. Chickens are fantastic at picking through everything and getting all those little nasties, and that cuts down a lot on what my cow is exposed to. When the goats are fully trained on their hot wire fencing up there, we'll be putting them behind the chickens. So the grass will have a couple days rest in between cow, chicken, and goat. The other thing about the goats is that they're going to be going largely on this very brushy hillside behind me, full of brambles, and they'll help us mitigate some of those things as well. Pretty cool setup. Really happy with it. We installed a rollaway nest box. That was one modification we made to the Justin Rhodes plan. We do have one egg-eating chicken in this flock. That's her right there, that little black one. And so we put the rollaway nest box in. Now she doesn't eat the eggs. So yeah, that's the farm. That's the tour of the farm. Thank you guys so much for joining me and coming along. I'm sorry if this video is a little bit long, but it's been a while since I had an opportunity to come and do an update. I literally, every time I go to grab the camera, like literally every time I go to grab the camera, it starts raining or something happens. It's just like this constant barrage of like, well, that made this completely impossible. So, but I am not going to be deterred. I feel like that's the work of the devil, and I don't let him run my life. So anyways, thank you so much for coming along with me, and have a wonderful evening.